Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. So what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, fairly recently Margot did a Facebook challenge where there were a lot of industrial scenes with a lot of smoke and steam, and quite a few of you struggled a little bit with it and asked if I'd do a tutorial on smoke. Now I wasn't sure whether that would make a full tutorial, so we're going to go for smoke, steam and mist. So for the smoke and steam, I pulled out some old paintings of mine and I've added some effects to them, but at the end of the video I've got a full tutorial on creating mist. And also do hang about to the very end because I've got some beautiful paintings of industrial scenes with lots of smoke going on from our Facebook group, so please check those out and come and join me and we'll paint these step by step together. So let's start with a little smoke from the chimney, and I'm simply using a white pastel pencil or a watercolor pencil. Now the first decision to make is the direction of the smoke. Now I think it would look a little bit awkward going against the direction of the sky, so I'm using a similar angle and using small rotating marks starting at the base, then widening out slightly as I move further away. And most important, lightening the value by using less pressure on the pencil. Nice and strong at the base of the chimney, but the key here, the magic here, is to smudge it with your finger. That way you'll get that nice soft smoky feel. And here it wants to be light enough and soft enough to disappear to nothing. There we go, I think that works. Just gives the craft a nice cozy warm feel. And there's a full tutorial on this painting if you're interested, link above. We've looked at white smoke on a dark background, now we're going to be putting some dark smoke on a light background, and again very much the same, using a pastel pencil, this time a grey, and just lightly applying and smudging again. Now this is a rough textured paper, so it's not applying quite so smoothly, but with a bit of rubbing with your finger it can work well. And here I'm just using a standard graphite pencil and again smudging and letting it disappear out to nothing at the top. And again gives a nice cozy addition to this pub scene. Next we're going to have a go with this industrial scene, and I'm going to add some smoke using traditional watercolour. So here with some Payne's Grey I'm just painting in a chimney and a very light transparent wash here because you want to see the sky through the layer, and again widening out as we get towards the top. Now what I'm doing here is on the side of the smoke that's being hit by the light, I'm softening with clean water. So again, I'm looking at that sense of light and I'm taking a damp tissue and just rubbing fairly hard to soften the side that faces the light. Now it is important that you do this when your washes are completely bone dry. Now this painting is about 10 years old, so I know I'm pretty safe there. Next we're going to try a nifty little technique for some steam, perhaps coming up from some boiler or something like that. So I'm taking some white gouache, mixing it with water so I get a nice creamy mixture. And with my flat brush I'm just wetting this area here with clean water, a very light touch, you don't want to disturb any of that dry paint. Then with my smaller brush I'm directly painting in the white gouache. Now at the moment you're probably thinking that's way too white and bright, but trust me now, as it dries it's going to get much more faded and more transparent. Now at the moment it looks a bit like our fluffy white cat PP eating his dinner. And here I'm just adding a little more water along that bottom edge and just flattening it out. And perhaps it's looking still a little too solid, so I'm lightly dabbing with a tissue. There we go. I think that looks like fairly convincing steam. Next, with this street scene, I'm going to do exactly the same technique to suggest perhaps some steam rising up from some vent or something. So, clean water again, just very lightly applying, and then straight in with the white gouache. Now I'm going to be a little bit more subtle this time. I really don't want this to stand out too much, but just suggest here the direction of the steam. There we go. I just think it's a great little technique for suggesting a little bit of atmosphere and mood in a night scene. So next we're going to create this mountainside scene and some lovely misty effects. Now for today's materials, I was kindly sent this watercolour block made by Etcher to try out. Now it's 100% cotton, 350 grams and 9x12 in size. Now I'm not sponsored, but they did send me this free of charge to try, and I'll give you my honest answer later. Next for my colours, and there's just 4 of them: yellow ochre, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue and Payne's grey, and from my range 2 brushes, number 12 and number 6 round. Oh, and I'm also using my large Harkay. Off we go, and wetting the complete sheet with clean water. And still using my large Harkay brush, I'm putting in some big, bold, vertical strokes using some yellow ochre. And here with some Payne's grey, mainly towards the edges, and you can see that the paper is still very wet. I've also added in a little touch of French ultramarine blue into the Payne's grey. I'm letting all those colours mix and blend on the paper, still keeping the vertical stripes coming down, and then I'm going to tilt my board to about an angle of 45 degrees, letting the paint run down, and just mopping up any residue moisture along the bottom edge here. Using my flat brush, a distant bank of trees here way over in the distance. Very important, this all goes in wet to get those lovely soft edges. Just picking up a little bit of the paint here with a damp brush. And holding my flat brush vertically, just suggesting the tops of a few fir trees here. So what is important to get that nice soft misty effect is just to get a really soft edge along the bottom. So I'm just picking up some paint again with my brush. So next I'm going to let that totally dry. Then I'm coming in with my spray bottle and just spraying in the centre here. Just a light spray, don't saturate the paper. So as I'm painting in these tree shapes using my number 12 brush, that spray is helping to give a slightly defined, slightly out of focus feel. Now because those droplets of water didn't totally saturate the paper, I'm not getting a totally blurry effect like those background trees. There is definitely some shape, even though some of the edges are soft. And here, clean water along the bottom to get that misty edge. And if some of the definition gets lost, just come back in again and just create the tree shape. And just to make sure I don't get any drying lines here, I'm just lightly dabbing out with a tissue. Now, if I want some further details, I'll often use the sharpened wooden end of my brush and just drag out some of the paint. Now I've sprayed this area again with clean water, and I'm using my smaller number 6 brush here for these distant trees, and perhaps I've just sprayed in a little bit too much water, so I might have to come back and do this a couple of times if it blurs out too much. And again softening the bottom with some clean water. Final couple of trees over here on the left, and I'm going to spray a little bit less here. Perhaps we want a little bit more detail on these trees, not quite such a fuzzy edge. End of my brush again for a few more details. Ooh, I must have picked up a new brush by mistake, as this one hasn't been sharpened yet. So for these closer trees, I'm just adding in some burnt umber just for a little bit of warmth. And as before, wetting that bottom edge is really important. I think I'm going to make this tree just a little bit taller. Then over here, very dark, I'm going to do more of a rounded shaped tree. Perhaps this is sort of a deciduous tree. Using the dry brush technique by keeping my paintbrush flat to the paper and picking up its texture. Lots of wet paint in here, and again softening that bottom edge with clean water. A few little details with my number 6. And again making sure I haven't got any drying lines by dabbing out with a clean tissue. Then when that's totally dry, taking a clean damp tissue and just slightly softening some of these edges, just to create a little bit more of that mist texture. Regarding my thoughts on this etch of paper, now I think I probably need to use it a little bit more and try out some more different painting styles before I can comment on whether it's good or not, but for this exercise it's certainly been absolutely fine. It stayed wet a nice long time, the texture's good, and yeah, I'll give it a good 7 out of 10. Right, so I'm going to try out that misty gouache technique we did earlier. So I've let it totally dry overnight, then very lightly re-wetting this area. Then in with that creamy mixture of white gouache. Now I've not tried this with acrylic paint, so I can't tell you if it works just as well. But again, as you apply this, it looks a little bit severe, a little bit too obvious, but when it dries, it'll be a lot more subtle. There we go, it almost disappeared, but it is there, so you can gauge each time how much paint to put in. All done, and this one took me about an hour. Well, I hope you enjoyed those as much as I did, and you've learnt something from it. Coming up as promised now, some lovely paintings from our Facebook group. But in the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. It is free. Leave a comment. I do read every single one. Can't always reply to them all. And of course, I look forward to seeing you all again. Where's my drink? Next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Cheers now.